I talked to our guys and I asked them whether they wanted to tell something to the Russian terrorists. And 99% of the guys were like, we don't want to talk to them, we want to kill them. So that's the kind of morale that we have now.
And you posted recently reports of Ukrainian special forces raiding Russian trenches. What kind of impact did that have? Presumably it was a very small operation, but perhaps psychologically impactful.
Yes, you can see operators armed with AR-15s, with sound moderators, and such operations, they are, I would say, pretty much frequent. Because, again, Russians are much, much weaker in terms of CQB, close quarter battle.
Hello and welcome to Frontline for Times Radio with me, Kate Chabot. And today we're getting an update from Kiev on the counter-offensive in Ukraine. And I'm joined by a soldier and regular YouTuber reporting on the situation, Operator Starsky. Operator Starsky, so good to have you on Frontline. Thank you so much for your time. And your latest posting announces the 8th village to fall back into the hands of the Ukrainian forces. How would you describe the progress made?
I can say that currently we can see a lot of action across different spans of the front lines. But here I would like to quote our president, who said that when the full-scale counteroffensive starts, you will see that.
And everybody has been speculating when that will be. That could be some time away, couldn't it?
Absolutely. Well, you see, we don't have this habit of informing people when we gonna start such activities, so to say.
And on the front line where Ukrainian forces are fighting, what kind of resistance are they getting from the Russian forces?
The contact combat, I mean, close quarter battle, things like that. Russians are not better than Ukrainians. We have better training. We were prepared in a better way. Specifically, those troops that were trained abroad in countries like Germany, the UK, they have much better training, better equipment, better support, better motivation, better morale. But considering the fact that Russians still use a lot of their artillery and guided bombs and cruise missiles and ballistic missiles, is still very, very dangerous. The most casualties that, for example, we had at the front line so far come from artillery fire and airstrikes.
And what about the threat posed by minefields, which the forces obviously have to get across?
Yes, that's a big threat, specifically now because currently we switched, our operations from defensive operations to more offensive operations. That's why mines are a big, big threat. Several of my friends got injured due to the anti-personnel mines. Also, I lost several friends due to anti-tank mines. So those things are nasty.
I'm really sorry to hear that. As Ukrainian forces have moved from a defensive role to an offensive role, what's the morale like?
It's amazing. So in some of my recent videos, I talked to our guys and I asked them whether they wanted to tell something to the Russian terrorists. And 99% of the guys were like, we don't want to talk to them, we want to kill them. So that's the kind of morale that we have now.
And you posted recently reports of Ukrainian special forces raiding Russian trenches. What kind of impact did that have? Presumably it was a very small operation, but perhaps psychologically impactful.
Yes, you can see operators armed with AR-15s, with sound moderators, and such operations, they are, I would say pretty much frequent. Uh, because again, Russians are much weaker in terms of CQB, close quarter battle, and of course they have lower morale, much lower than us, because we have a purpose of being at the front lines. We are defending our country and we are fighting for survival. Russians have absolutely no reason to be there, and they realize that. The difference between now and the past year, what we saw previously, is that Russians were convinced that they were winning. They were shown those pictures, that there were Russian troops around like Lviv, those cities, and they believed that it was true. And it's always more fun to fight when you believe that your army is winning the war. But fighting a defensive war is a completely different thing, and they don't want to just spend less days of their lives in trenches being shelled and killed by Ukrainian operators.
You said those raids on trenches, Russian trenches, are happening frequently. Can you give us an idea of how frequently?
Uh, Pretty much in recent days, quite a lot of them happen. We know that a lot of positions, for example, in Bakhmut, were uh, taken back. There were positions that our forces occupied in June. June, January, January
And
this year.
what can you tell us about how Ukrainian forces are able to hold the ground that they've gained? How are they getting on? What difficulties are they having with that?
The biggest difference is the biggest difficulty is Russian airstrikes, of course. Because even despite the fact that the number of their artillery strikes decreased, but it doesn't mean that it stopped. People must understand that Russians can still use like 20,000 shells per day easily, and that's a lot. So artillery strikes, air strikes, those are nasty, and those are the biggest threat that we have, not the infantry.
And do you have any idea of how much of a dent the Ukrainian advances are making on the Russian supplies and equipment?
Several huge ammunition storages were destroyed like several days ago. In the area of Kherson, there was a huge, tremendous explosion. We know that all the shells and rockets that were stored there, they were burning and exploding for several days. Um, it's a normal thing. It's a usual thing for Ukrainian army to destroy Russian logistics supplies. That's exactly what we saw starting from the beginning of this invasion, and we continue doing that.
And what Western equipment is proving the most effective? What have you seen being used to greatest effect?
Um,
Do you need to take that call? You okay?
I can take it, right?
If you need to take it, take it. We
I
can we
really
can.
need it.
Is it
It's my
important?
commander.
Oh yeah, take it. Take your call.
Yeah,
Take your call. I don't want to
just a
interrupt
second.
that. Hi,
Yeah, I'm back.
Operator Starsky. You just had a call from your commander. Is there anything you can share with us about that call?
Not much, just usual everyday's business.
Okay, usual everyday business in the war. Yes, of course.
Yeah, he gives me tasks. I have to report on their accomplishing, things like that.
What does a day in your life look like?
It depends. Every day is very different. Sometimes it's staying with our air defense guys, uh, hunting drones. Sometimes nothing happens during the night because you cannot predict when the Russians are going to launch them, whether they want to launch them or not. Sometimes it's meeting a lot of people, a lot of press from other countries. Usually, I have live broadcast almost every day on Ukrainian television, because we have this so-called TV marathon dedicated to all the news. Like, it's news nonstop. And because we're military and we don't sleep much, our Ukrainian journalists like to call us at around 5 a.m. Um, and sometimes there are interesting things happening in our brigade, for example, because um, imagine Justin Bieber joining army, right? Now imagine Ukrainian Justin Bieber joining an army. And that's exactly what happened with our brigade. Our local pop singer decided to join the army. He was enlisted in our brigade. And I talked to him today, besides, making plenty of selfies. Um, and I was impressed because, it's not the kind of it's not a fighting kind of man, right? He's not a warrior. He's a pop singer, but he said, I was recruited and I will fight because this is my country, my people, my family, and I will do anything it takes to protect them. And
what what's his name?
Vitale Kozlowski. It's actually one of the most popular pop singers in Ukraine, and he's gonna serve with us. He will have several weeks of training in the training camp, and then he will continue serving in the brigade.
I guess it's too early to say how good a soldier he's going to be.
I will let you know. I will do my best to let you know.
He'll be good for morale no matter what happens. I'm sure about that. Um, what about the Western equipment? How effective is that proving on the front line, and what evidence is there about what is there?
I can talk about what I saw. I saw Western vehicles used by my brigade, for example, to deliver troops to the front line, to the positions. They're also used for evacuating wounded, delivering ammunition and shells. And those vehicles already got acquainted with Russian mortar fire, missiles, rockets, bullets, and fragments, and they are nice. I would say they can withstand all that. So we are very, very much satisfied with those vehicles.
I just wanted to ask you what kind of an impact when the dam exploded, the Kharkovka dam exploded, what kind of impact did that have on the psyche of the Ukrainian soldier?
I think it only improves and solidifies our motivation to fight, because everybody knows that Russians did that, and the reason they did that was because they could not predict the results of destroying the dam. They wanted to obviously they wanted to have some create some minor flooding to stop our troops from crossing Dnipro. Uh, at the same time, they couldn't predict that they could cause a major ecocide, actually. And as for our morale, it doesn't change much in terms of our morale. It only confirms the claims that the Russians are terrorists, and we should treat them like terrorists.
You've said in previous interviews that Ukrainian forces, Ukrainian people have been learning how to combat Russia since 2014. I'm just wondering what you have learned in terms of a fighting force, and how you do take on Russia.
It's very easy. Russians do everything according to Russian field manuals that didn't change since like 1947. They tried to adapt some American field manuals, actually. But in order to do that, you have to change the whole structure. the whole approach. And Russians like to do everything according to those field manuals, meaning that they only do specific types of trenches. For example, they prepare their positions in a specific way. For example, if it's a position of a mortar battery, they have specific number of those mortar nests, so-called, several additional positions and things like that. So, for example, when we know that the Russian mortar battery is located in some area, by literally looking at this map, we can predict where they have their positions, and they don't change that. Tactically, they do change their actions. We have to adapt to those changes, but generally, Russian army never changes. It's an old Soviet army that we learned about a lot.
You say that they have changed their tactics. How have you seen the tactics change since the invasion of 2022?
For example, again, those Shahed drones, because they're changing the way they're launching them at our peaceful cities, at civilian targets, infrastructure. Sometimes they change the trajectory of those Shaheds, sometimes the altitude. Uh, Sometimes they attack using like big swarms of those drones. Sometimes they attack using waves. For example, when they need to discover the location of our anti-air defense, anti-air measures like missiles, positions of our mobile troops, they can launch several waves of drones, strike drones plus surveillance drones. And later, when they discover the positions of our air defense, they can launch another wave of drones to strike them. So they're adapting to our tactics. We are adapting to their tactics. It happens every single day.
You are a platoon commander yourself, and you've been to the front line, or you've fought several times already. How are you supporting Ukrainian forces at the moment?
So currently, I'm working as a press officer for my brigade, and my task is to inform Ukrainian society on what happens at the front lines, what happens with our guys, their morale, and also as a YouTuber, because I have a very very big community of international supporters of Ukraine, defenders of Ukraine from all kinds of countries of the world. My mission basically is to inform them on what happens here on the ground.
And can you tell me what daily life is like in Kiev at the moment?
Um, you see, Russians tried to destroy our infrastructure during this winter in order to make Ukrainians freeze, citizens of Kiev freeze and suffer, and they failed big time because they don't have so many missiles that would be enough to kill all of us or destroy enough of our infrastructure. Ukraine is a very big country. It's a second largest country in Europe. And currently, life looks okay. We had no air alerts for 2 days, except for tonight. We had one. There was a threat of Shahed drones. Several missiles also were launched. We know that Lviv was hit with missiles tonight. And like usual life looks usual to me, Ukrainians on weekends, for example, Ukrainians go out with their families. Um, I mean, Kiev is not a frontline city, but at the same time, there's always a threat of being hit with a cruise missile or strike drone, and even despite the fact that Kiev is very big, there are several million people living here. But at the same time, whenever we have such air alerts, we know definitely that if this missile is not intercepted, there's a big chance that somebody will definitely die tonight. You know,
And how much confidence do you have in the missile defense systems in Kiev at the moment?
a lot, because all the recent strikes that were conducted by the Russian terrorists, they all failed. The most recent one, when they used six cruise missiles called Caliber and six hypersonic missiles called Kinjal, they all failed. They were all intercepted, and it's amazing what the Western anti-air systems can do. It's absolutely amazing.
And it's impossible to imagine how long this war will go on. When will you consider the war to be over?
Uh, Literally yesterday, I was asked this question, and I have two answers. Optimistically, tomorrow. Pessimistically, it will take maybe 10 years. But realistically, if this counteroffensive is successful, and we all believe that it will be successful, then realistically, 2023, 2024 will be the ending year of the war.
And when that war ends, how do you see Ukraine? What is it going to? How does it look to you?
Um,
I guess I'm asking you what victory looks like, or how you think the war will actually end realistically.
the war will end when there will be no Russian troops on the Ukrainian territory. And how exactly it's gonna look like, it's a different question. But the main goal is to remove Russian terrorists from Ukrainian territory, restore the internationally recognized borders, and uh, and that's it.
And for yourself, how is your morale at the moment?
Um it didn't change much. We stopped having good sleep since February last year, but I'm not nagging because this is our job. Morale is fine. Again, we realize that we are fighting for our survival. Russians proved many times that they cannot live peacefully next to Ukrainians. They want us dead. They want Ukraine assimilated. They want Ukrainians to become Russians or die. As easy as that. Bucha, Izium, all those places showed that they're not kidding. It's a genocide of Ukrainian people. We found more than half hundred torture facilities in the liberated areas, and basically Russians want to kill us. So we have no other choice but to protect our families, and it's either we are dead or we can try to survive.
And for yourself, the immediate future, you're heading to the front line this summer.
Yeah.
Do you know where or what you'll be doing?
Yes, I know, but I cannot tell you all details. I hope I will be able to make my reports from the front lines, because being there is, of course, gives you wider perspective on what happens. So hopefully, I will deliver more content to my viewers as well.
It's very hard to get the truth out in this war because so much of it has been about information and disinformation. When you are communicating your information, what's your priority?
Priority is the communication, because sometimes people who don't understand the difference between public relations and propaganda, they call the communication strategy in Ukraine propaganda. It's a completely different thing. Propaganda is when your media in your country are 100% censored, and there's absolutely no freedom of speech, and you cannot talk about things openly. That is propaganda. Propaganda produces fakes and lies. Public relations is a communication. It's both ways, communications forward and back. You give information, you receive feedback, and you're trying to inform people as much as possible on what happens here in Ukraine on the ground. That's my approach towards this.
And are you confident that your messaging is getting through to the outside world? And what message are you wanting to send?
The biggest message is that keep supporting Ukraine because this is the right thing to do. And another message is this war, this invasion showed us that we did underestimate not only Ukrainians, because a lot of experts were saying that Ukraine was going to give up in 3 days, but we also underestimated all the decent people in this world that showed their tremendous support of our people. And I would like to pass this message to our international supporters that Ukrainian people will never forget your help, because what you are doing is literally saving our lives. And we are very, very grateful for that.
Operator Starsky, I wish you the very best for this summer. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully we'll be able to speak to you when you get down there fighting on the front line. Really appreciate your time. You've been watching Frontline for Times Radio with me, Kate Chabot. My thanks to our producer, Louis Sykes, and to you for watching. Bye-bye for now.